Working yesterday.
Wrong.
I don't know. I couldn't get it to come up.
Couldn't get it to, I was just on it this morning.
Yesterday it would not.
Really? Huh. Weird. Well, let me try it on here.
So I don't know if people were looking for information on the website, and some people wanted to pay bills, so but yeah, it looks.
I tracked down the Healthy.
You did?
Yeah.
Where was it?
It was with the park. That park people had it.
Are you kidding me?
No.
Oh,
So,
good job,
so
Eric.
now it's in the shop.
Thank you very much.
Wow.
Good morning, Ron.
Morning, Gloria.
I'm good.
I've been here for a while.
I had company and then I had oral surgery and
All right. Yeah.
so I'm here for a little bit and
Yeah. All right. Well, this should be a pretty quick meeting, I think.
well, I know how public meetings go.
Well, yeah, we end up getting a lot of feedback on it, so.
Well,
But you never know until you do the meetings on it.
so I have a couple of quick questions
Yeah.
that I'll ask, and if you want me to ask them during the meeting, great. I have to leave at 10 to 9 to meet a contractor.
Well, you do both, but yeah.
Okay, so my first question is, I own a lot in the meadow.
Right.
Am I gonna have any problem getting a sewer permit, you think, if I build in 2 or 3 years?
No. No, we've got, we're working on building a new plant, so
Yeah.
this place will stop if that doesn't happen. But as far as everything goes as planned, it should.
It'll be fun. Yeah, I'm not worried about that part. Hi, Marlene. So, when the original, what do you call them? I call them EDUs, you call them SFEs.
Same.
I know, when they were calculated
Mhm.
way back when, they obviously undercalculated.
Well, they missed some things. Town centers always been about the same. We changed the way we calculated based on square footage in a way.
Right.
So there were a few things, yeah.
And that has adjusted
Yeah.
as things have played out.
We've had that in play for 10 years now.
Yeah. And so you've slowly seen the,
Yeah.
what would I call it, the shrink of
Yeah.
available SAs.
Well, and then so you gotta identify full build out, it's not gonna be perfect. And then, obviously we're gonna be up, so.
Yeah.
That's better. But if everything, if everything goes as planned as far as the upgrades and keeping the plant expanded to accommodate
Right.
those, there should be no problem.
And I'm not,
If that stops, yeah, there'll be
it will be an
not
impact.
enough capacity. So,
Yeah. Next question is on Purple Pipe.
yeah.
Is there a way to alleviate the pressure on the need for water? Or,
It helps some, and we're working on a few areas, town center being the biggest one.
they're willing to do it?
Oh yeah, they're already putting infrastructure in, so when the Tiger grant goes through, that'll give us the opportunity to lay pipe across the highway. Because we gotta get to the
Yeah.
golf course stuff, and that's not an easy piece of pipe because it's a state.
It's underneath the state
And
highway.
we've all kind of agreed to put it into that bucket.
Sweetgrass had to go under the interstate, so,
Yeah, right.
no fun.
So we just looked at that as the best time to put that pipe, because the whole highway's gonna be ripped up.
Okay, what about this side of them?
We're hooking up some condos, the
I know
new
that.
workforce housing project over here is gonna connect.
And my house right now sits right next to that.
Right.
So,
It's kind
is
of a
there-
drop in the bucket in the big scheme of things, but it's still, a relatively simple thing to do where it's close to our infrastructure.
Okay, and then what do you have to do as far as draining that purple pipe? I mean,
We have to blow it out, just like a regular,
we
yeah,
all blow it out.
yeah. So we're finished up blowing out the golf course, that just happened.
And then, so I have my own person who comes and manages my irrigation. Would there have to be a shut off?
Yes, yeah, you'd want to shut off on every connection.
Okay, so, and that shut off, I presume, would be in the ditch where the water and the purple pipe exists. There would be a second shut off besides
Right,
water.
yeah, there's a main one, and then there'd be a second one.
And you wouldn't put that, for example, I think my current shut off, maybe on Cross.
No,
It is out.
Up on the property line. And we got, that's the piece we haven't put forward, is hooking up individual homes. Doing the multi.
I don't know how big of an impact that would be.
It's not that much, it's surprisingly low. We kind of look at the whole park area, that's a couple million gallons over the course of a whole summer. So it's a big area, not
But not a big impact.
not a huge, but yeah, them up, and it's helps.
Well, and then the question is, how many on, for example, in Coyote irrigate? Do everybody want to irrigate? I know my neighbors don't.
Well, it gets a little more problematic at the same time. So. It's gotta be pretty close to existing infrastructure, and then there's limitations to pumps and all that, so. The sky isn't the limit in terms of just looking at everybody.
Okay, you want me to ask my question then about, I don't know a lot in the meadow, can I?
Well, I just gave you the
Somebody's-
answers, so.
I know,
Yeah.
somebody's gonna perhaps ask the question.
Yeah, our engineer will be here and he can speak to that.
And
You could-
one more question. I know AE2S helped you with the rates.
Yeah, Nexus, which is them.
I know who they are.
Yeah.
I know them well.
Yeah.
What about doing just a second calculation using Montana Regional Water's calculation worksheet? Have you guys done that?
I've never even seen their worksheet,
I haven't.
so I don't know what that looks like.
Well, it's fairly simple.
But yeah, you all used it in Sweetgrass. Yeah.
Morning, Mike.
Hey, good morning, how are you?
They're pretty
Good,
big,
you?
so,
Oh my
yeah.
God. Well,
It would be interesting to see what that looks like.
I'm helping them right now because they implemented new rates when I got off the board,
Yeah,
which would be a year ago. And when they input it into the computer system they're using, I don't think it's calculating the sewer bump up rate correctly. So I'm gonna join their water board meeting tomorrow night and explain it to them.
yeah, I could look at that. Show me before you go.
Oh, I know they're not.
Are they metered there?
Sewer's not, so what they're doing is they're using, November, December, January, and February water usage rates to calculate
Little
the
stiff-legged just because you're
the
driving or
additional
what?
usage that they give, that they charge on their sewer fees. So I know how it works, it's just the computer can't do it, we have to do it manually.
You can do I can build a spreadsheet for you.
And so they keep
Well, I've
scratching
already
it.
got a spreadsheet, thank you anyway. I'm building the,
What, are they using Black Mountain?
That had to have been,
no, they're using RDS,
So that may be part of it too, I suppose.
I suspect so.
So Black Mountain's got most of them.
I know, and how we ended up with RDS, do you know Rita Graham?
The names.
She's a water operator from Hungry Horse Corn.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like I have control over this.
She has a,
Oh,
she has an affiliation with Sweetgrass. She kind of grew up in the area.
okay.
So she did our books for probably 10 years at least.
Okay.
And that's how we ended up on RDS.
Okay. Well, you might be the only ones in Montana.
We could be.
Yeah. I gotta run to my office.
No problem.
So you gotta put you dirty.
Exactly.
Sounds like you're a CBD candidate.
Oh, probably, yeah. I need some oil.
Yeah. So one of my lady friends who had really pretty severe break on her leg recently, and she's my age, in her 60s. And anyway, I heard all the time, so finally she went down. She went up to hot shots.
Yeah.
Just like I've done this before.
Yeah.
Walks in and she's like, okay, tell me about this. And so really she got an education.
Yeah.
And they give her kind of like, it's almost like a roll-on deodorant,
Okay,
and she puts it on her foot.
Yeah.
And she said, it's amazing.
yeah, my parents are very used. They were the last people who ever, they were using it.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
neuropathy.
sure. Yeah,
Good morning. How are you?
Good morning.
Marlene, I'm gonna sneak out because I have to meet a contractor at 9. I might be back.
Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine it's gonna last very long, but who knows?
I
Those
understand.
AE2S people get pretty windy.
I'm not worried about it.
Ryan will be quick.
I'm not worried about it.
Oh, yeah, here it is. I didn't know you were paying too. Okay, thank you.
I'm Mary Ann Rhodes. I
I met you last year.
think so too, yeah.
Where do you use?
Hey, good morning. How you doing, man?
Good. With our water tank project.
You tried your own, I'm gonna try it out there, right?
I dealt with that.
It shouldn't be a busy week this week.
Yeah.
Hey,
You gotta come back tomorrow. Yeah, I wish I could get Steve and,
Yeah, Ron's been in Big Sky for that one. Yeah.
Kevin,
Forever around here.
go to Bozeman, I mean,
We
that'd be easier for everybody else.
We're gonna have
I'm retired.
Yeah.
multiple meetings, so at the end of the day, we'll give and take. Next meeting we'll have down there.
Well,
Yeah, I did go through and read the latest legislation.
that's amazing.
Resort
I didn't
tax.
think
Have you?
that
Well, no, I was part of it. I lobbied for it.
Oh, okay, but it's really, that 1% is very specific to water and sewer projects or transportation or emergency services. And that's it, those are the three things.
Yeah, and like you always said, it's fungible, so I mean, you can do some dosage diligence through the one and stuff like that, but the way the one's written, it's gotta be specific to those projects. But they can take some that's.
Well, they could
municipality.
take, what they fund the, transportation district
That's right.
and throw it into that 1%. And then it is
Still
fungible.
3.
Yeah. Morning, Steve.
We're speaking for you.
On my behalf?
Oh, I was just telling Mike that, in preparation for our meeting tomorrow, as I was reading the new, resort tax law.
The ordinance?
The ordinance.
Yeah.
Well, it's not an ordinance, it's a law, right?
It's a statute.
A statute.
Well, we call it an ordinance.
Okay.
Oh, you mean
The
the law?
the state statute.
Oh, the state law.
Yeah.
That's law.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't even think he said it. We're able to leak to it.
Just the specificity that got written into the Republicans wrote in there, where you have to make it project specific and the ability to turn it off and all that. That's
Well, that's the key thing that got it passed, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very specific though, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I mean, so we need to implement with that in mind.
Sure.
342 vacant lots on the water side, 483 on the sewer side. There's more on the sewer side because Spanish Peaks, we only provide sewer.
of unbuilt property in the district that has approval.
That are paying into the system,
And what does that equate to on SFDs?
about 800.
Well.
No, it really does.
Yeah.
It's, you know,
Two
1.75 or 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go. Should we throw the moratorium on now, or maybe after the end of the meeting? There's another huge risk factor that this board doesn't really appreciate in a lot of respects, is all the agreements out there that have legal obligations towards SFDs with Town Center, Spanish Peaks, and Big Sky Resort, having valid agreements. The day this district can't provide those agreements, the day they're in default, the day they're gonna get sued.
Oh, yeah, I mean,
We've essentially sold off obligations to everybody else and let those guys hang it.
the epiphany was that latest letter from the engineer on.
It's always been disposal and storage,
Yeah.
disposal and storage,
And then all of a
disposal
sudden
and storage.
it's.
The train switched track,
Yeah.
and it's gonna be that way forever. I think
Yeah.
the train's always gonna be chasing something, there's gonna be
Oh, yeah.
a disposal or a storage or a treatment issue. And as we've solved some of the disposal and storage issues, the next one,
Well, we
Rears
just
its
like
head.
right here,
Right.
this wall over here.
it's a little
But
bit.
it's always been disposal, and now all of a sudden it's plant.
Well, and Jim's gonna start beating us up about water and everything. I mean, the water will be another one, another train. There's 4 trains on this track,
Yeah.
Now, these are like
and we can get hit by any of them.
array.
Scott, did you, that meeting,
Good enough, or do you want more color?
I don't know, we must have got our wires crossed, because I committed to organizing the meeting, and then you started organizing the meeting too on the sidebar, but that's okay. You're gonna be there on,
Just got a meeting.
but yeah, we have a meeting. We're gonna be there on Wednesday.
Who cares?
And what's the audience? The audience is your subcommittee, which is 3.
Just me and Kevin. Well, I don't know if Danny's gonna come too.
But he's not on the board, so
No, but
He's
doing what?
admin assistant or something?
he's the
He's
general
the
manager.
executive, he's the district manager.
Oh, I should know that, right?
Uh,
Yeah, maybe.
He's new.
That's a long list. No, I mean, a fundamental thing that is going on is we are trying to get the board out of the hands-on stuff, which is so grotesquely overdue, I could scream.
Well, and having the board do the hands-on stuff, meant a lot of it just didn't get done.
Well,
It's too much.
Yeah, it's,
several boards basically refuse to spend the time.
well,
That's the God's honest truth.
that's a huge commitment too, of just all the administrative stuff that needed to be taken care of.
By the way, that's not exclusive to your board.
No, yeah,
It's all this volunteerism and how it's second fiddle to their day jobs
it's,
in the community.
Yeah.
it's a bunch of rampant mediocrity is what it is. I mean,
What's left.
we got more moving parts functioning at
From our plan.
half
And that's
confident
why.
level.
It's kind of like
Come on.
the BSOA when they brought in Mary Jane, is all of a sudden she realized all the stuff that needed to be taken care of, all this legal stuff that nobody took care of because it was behind the scenes kind of stuff. And she spent her 8 years when she was working on it, just cleaning all that stuff up.
Well, we
I could see someday resort tax growing to the point where it needs a professional board,
I understand.
where you have full-time commitment from all those members and you're tracking everything and all that.
Well, I'd rather see us have a professional staff than a professional board. I mean,
Yeah,
Every time we try to visit dry wells.
there's always this topic of,
Hardly reckon now.
government.
Okay.
If you would,
I wasn't really getting a conversation about a corporation, but yeah.
Yes.
And put on my glasses.
Yeah,
I mean, it's so
and this was
scary.
required of the
Right.
now.
How much more do you confidence in this place?
It's still playing on these numbers.
Well, I mean, this board suffers through a lot of that hate
Okay.
back in the
You're
day.
doing better than a lot.
So Ron,
Yes.
for this rate hearing, we need a forum,
Seriously, I mean,
We will to do any action.
but
I understand there are limitations.
we're having the rate hearing whether we have a quorum or not.
Yeah.
You do have
All right.
limitations.
Just
So
wanna make
again,
sure.
I'm gonna record this, so we'll record anybody that wants.
So we're gonna have a forum?
Hopefully it works.
Packy's calling in,
right?
We won't know.
Where is faster?
I know, you gotta do all the time.
I think he is, but I don't know where he is, so.
I thought he said he needed to do some training or something for ski school.
Oh, no, I think he meant for the next few months.
Okay.
Fundamental thing I don't know
Yeah,
about
one more
1%
check on
is if we
Plan, but
implement the 1% at the full 1%. I mean, the law says we can charge up to an additional
Right.
1%. If we charge the full 1% for a period of time, and we can earn enough money to bank the obligation that we have to you, and then we can turn it off, or do we charge less than 1% for the full term of what you're gonna propose? I don't
No,
know.
I think the repayment's gotta be fairly well spelled out, just
Oh, yeah.
from an election standpoint.
Oh, yeah, we gotta say what it's gonna terminate.
There'll
but
be
can we change that?
reserves, I don't think is part of.
Well, it's a pretty fixed schedule, it's a bond schedule, so it's not gonna be a guess, there's not gonna be any guesswork. We could appreciate exactly how much money,
I think the one argument you can make on that is like if 0.6% of current recovery of resort tax covers the 20-year obligation or the 15-year obligation, there might be a argument to make that 0.8 excess will be paying down the debt and it'll alleviate a downside recovery from resort
well, I mean,
tax.
the law implies that the math has to do the math.
Yeah, but the math is market dependent. So if we come into a recession and we hit it's at 0.6 fixed and 0.6 doesn't cover the bond debt because all of a sudden you're not recovering
Oh,
$8
yeah.
million
Yeah,
a year
yeah.
in resort tax, you're only recovering 7. So what I'm saying, there might be a 0.2 buffer that you can commit to paying down the note faster with the 0.2 if it's in excess, but the 0.2 will let you make the minimum obligation.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's a lot to talk about in
Yeah.
this regard is the point. And, you know, we've never done this before, so
No.
we're all kind of scratching our
Okay, once Ron comes back, we'll start. By the way,
Are you running the meeting?
I think Packy's calling in.
Vice President.
Packy's on, Peter's calling in too, so
I'm Marianne Cox.
they'll get us
You've been
started.
here a few times.
Yes.
Hi, Ron, how are you?
Okay.
Didn't recognize you, Ron, because you.
I know he's all cleaned up. Supposed to grow the beard for winter, cut it off in the spring.
Because you were in here a couple months ago, didn't you have a beard?
I did.
Well, that's why he didn't recognize you.
He had a long beard.
November's coming.
For a while, I was clean shaven and I grew a beard, no one recognized me, now I'm back.
Well, make up your mind.
The witness protection program.
Hey, Halloween's coming.
Yes.
I guess I'm running the meeting, so
Let me, see if Peter's
if
on.
we've got a quorum.
Yeah, Peter just called in, so. That will.
Morning.
Morning.
Who do we have?
That was Peter, and then Packy's on the go to meeting as well.
So is that enough?
Yeah.
Yep.
That gives you 4.
We need 4.
Wheeler's on his way to Bowlesby. He said he could call in if we needed him to make quorum, so.
Okay, well, I'm going to start the meeting, and it's 8:04. And before we get started, since this is an official meeting, I'm going to ask for any public comment that is on anything that is not on our agenda today.
Is there a,
You'll have public comment on what we're going to talk about today, but this is just for if you had anything else that you wanted to make a comment on. So,
I want to comment on the rate structure.
all right,
You'll have that potential.
yes. And then I'll ask for conflicts of interest on any of the items that we're talking about today, which is the rate hearing. And I'll start with you, Mike.
I have none.
Peter?
Nope.
Nope. Is there anyone else on the phone?
Packy.
Packy, do you have any conflicts of interest on this?
I do not.
Okay, and I don't have any as well. So I will, with that, I'll call the meeting to order and give it over to Ron to talk about the rate hearing, and then we will, as we talk about it, we will ask for any comments from the public. So.
We'll give you a little bit of history on this, and Ryan Graff is also on the call. Ryan works with Nexus. He's in the Grand Forks office in North Dakota, and we've been working for months looking at rates. For the first time in the history of our existence, we're looking at creating a new rate structure that splits up residential and commercial. So that's the big takeaway on this, and also puts irrigation in a separate bucket as well. We've grown to the point with our community here, it makes sense to look at that and to potentially do that. And when we got into the rate analysis, some things became pretty obvious as we got into it. The cost of service analysis showed that we've got some disparity between residential customers, what they're paying, versus commercial ratepayers. So to address that, we're proposing these rates, which would create these different categories. Ryan's on the phone. I'm going to turn it over to him. He's going to walk through the analysis and kind of a short version. We sent rate hearing letters out as part of the third quarter billing that showed the different rates that we've got before you. So that's what's on the table, at least for this hearing. Proposed sewer and water rates, and the purpose of the hearing is to get feedback from you all as our customers. Ryan, can you hear me all right?
Yes, I can.
Okay, and I'm going to let you, let's see if I can give you the controls for this.
It's let me share.
What's that?
It's letting me share. Share there.
There you go. All right, so you've got the screen there.
Okay. Well, thank you guys for having the rate hearing. A little bit of background. Thank you for the introduction. I appreciate it. As he mentioned, we've been working on the overall rate study here since late spring, early summer, really. Through that process, what we did was a typical, I guess, cost of service, rate design, long-term planning, rate study for the district, looking at both water and sewer rates using the methodology from AWWA and WEF that they put forth for cost of service and rate studies. We make changes to that methodology as appropriate for the district. And over the course of the months here, what we did is we stepped through the process you see below, where we took a look at overall revenue requirements. What does the district need at the moment for operations and maintenance? What do they need for capital? How can we estimate those moving forward? We looked at, as part of that, we looked at reserve requirements, and working with Terry helped kind of better define what reserve levels you have, how they should be bucketed, and put some, I guess, more definitive policy to language to how you maintain those different reserve levels. From there, we jumped into the cost of service study, and the board members who are present will recall we've gone over that quite a bit. But for those who haven't, what a cost of service study does is it looks at those revenue requirements we established at the beginning. It breaks them apart to how you're actually providing service to your customers, right? So that includes, how does the budget line item of personnel relate to how you pump water from the ground on the water system, and then checking the pipes and the capital to the electricity costs of that as well, right? So you follow that through a fairly detailed process of functionalization, the function of what that budget category does. Classification is what type of cost it is, whether it's administrative, source of supply, kind of variable costs, or capital costs, capacity. And then finally, based on how users use your system, you take those classified costs and allocate them to the different buckets. And we went through that and we looked at a broader variety of user classes, because you do maintain a lot of good information in your utility database to be able to help do that. And so as Ron said, we identified the cost of service for a bunch of different user groups, and that really helped inform how we then moved into rate design. Because through rate design, we wanted to make sure that the costs that were charged to users are as close as possible to the benefit that they're receiving for the service that you provide as a district. And so we had some new changes to the rate design on both the water and sewer side, adding the different user classes, and then on the water side also adjusting the tier. From there, we did put together a set of long-term kind of rate recommendations that help you address the capital challenges you have up front. But not only that, but when we look at the long-term planning, I just want to reiterate that the rates you have in front of you are only for the current fiscal year that you're in. And we are not at this point adopting the rate recommendations for the next fiscal year, knowing that there are some questions related to other funding sources on the wastewater side especially, on the sewer side especially, that you'd like to address before making those adopting long-term rate recommendations like that. Next, I'll just briefly go over what some of the steps of the process looked like on the sewer side. When we identified cost of service, we noted that your residential and condo classes, the percent of revenue they were generating exceeded the percent of allocated costs. And in your other user classes, they were below the allocated cost as a share of revenue. And so that was really what gave us the impetus to look at having a separate commercial and residential volumetric rate. As we looked at future cost planning, we did go out to FY 24-25. While here we have approximately a 1.6% growth rate to meters and flows, and then a 6% growth rate to O&M. One benefit of doing the kind of shorter term adoption of rates is that we know Big Sky is growing very fast, and so these growth rates might be a little too conservative for users in the meter, and then flows, just because we might see them coming in a lot hotter, and so that helps offset as you spread costs to a broader user base. On the CIP, there's a...
Ryan, are you clicking through slides as you're talking? Because we're still on the...
I am plugging through slides. Can you not see it?
No. I mean, it's sitting, we hear you fine, it's sitting on the first slide, but nothing's advanced past that. I can do it from my end if you want to. What slide?
There we go.
Does everybody,
How's
audience have this sheet? A copy of it?
Is that the one that they sent out?
That's the one that's sent out.
There you go.
Is that something we could get a copy for everyone? So Ryan,
That's working now, I think.
Ryan, the rate that you're talking, let's going back to water just for a second. The rates that are in the letter are the ones that are proposed adopting, not the full realization of costs that Brian was talking about, correct? Brian was saying that we were...
On the water side, you did take the recommendations as initially proposed. On the sewer side, if you recall, you reduced in half the volumetric increases that had been initially proposed as one of the scenarios.
We also, on the water side, originally your recommendation was, the adjusted tiers was 0 to 15,000 gallons, the first tier, and we upped that to 20, correct?
Yes, so the residential tiers, I think you should be able to see it as we jump to that, but the existing tier 1 would be 0 to 60, the adjusted residential would be 0 to 20, and the commercial would be 0 to 30. There we go.
Your original recommendation was 0 to 15 though, right?
There were quite a
We had
that, I
five.
think we did have 0 to 15 recommend. We did have a 0 to 15 scenario, yes.
All right.
And I think of those you preferred when you looked at the implications of the 0 to 15 or 0 to 20, knowing that there are quite a, and I think I have that if I go back. Yeah, so if you see here, you would have captured, let me get the pointer. At about the 15, you would have captured quite a few more, especially in the irrigation court season, where that now you're going to be capturing about the 50th percentile and above during the irrigation, getting into the second tier. Whereas earlier they were all in tier 1, except for what the top 20% were exceeded tier 1 during the irrigation season.
Mm-hmm.
And so at the 20,000 gallons, you're giving them a bit more of a buffer for all of those customers kind of during the low flow standard residential type use scenarios, with triggering into the higher tiers when they start to have quite a bit more flow happening at their residences.
Thank you.
Quarter 3 is the big one for all irrigation.
And I'm irrigating now, and I would be in the second tier based on this last year. Next year, my aim is to stay in the first tier.
Okay.
So this
Well, that's-
impacts me, I know that.
Yeah, so this is July, August, September.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ryan.
Yep. So this is just, as I mentioned, I guess pretty conservative meter and flow growth rates, but until, I guess what they say, don't count your chickens before they hatch, and that's part of the reason we recommend annually reviewing actual revenues, so that rate recommendations can be adjusted according to what you see as far as flows and actual meters coming online. Just kind of as a refresher on the capital cost, we do see quite a bit of that capital being the new treatment plant, with some committed grants and our projected use of reserves. And that really is one of the reasons to hold off on the final or on the long-term rate recommendations, as you really continue working on that funding plan collaboratively with the Resort Tax Board. On the operation side, we see that new chemicals and power, as well as labor that will take to run the plant, are really driving that 6+% growth rate on O&M costs.
So it looks from this chart that is resort tax would be in the bucket of committed grants, but it's not committed right now.
It's not good.
So you're not assuming any resort tax funding of a new plant.
We're not recovering. This model does not account for recovering $30 million of costs.
Right.
Of the rates. Other rates. That'll be a different. That's going back to that obligation versus revenue bonding later on and all that. So it stays consistent with our capital improvement recovery how we generated the $4 million that we have in our budget right now for future.
Plan investments.
Yeah, that's gonna be growth of that.
Right.
We're gonna commit some of that capital to.
We got some loan forgiveness from FM. What's in the 625, Brian?
The 625 is what's committed, 250 from the resort tax board that was approved this funding cycle.
Did you
And
say
then the 375 from the DEQ. Obviously, if the resort tax doesn't work out for the funding of our plan, we'll have a whole different discussion on what these rates look like with bonding.
Well, it depends on how you go about it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
correct?
whether it's a
Geo,
revenue bond or a general.
Geo and revenue bonds or both. Yeah.
Right.
And are there other grants available?
Big Sky has not typically done well on the grant pool at the state level. There may be others out there that could work. Our history with grants and TSEPs hasn't been a good one. Our income levels are high, and that doesn't help our score.
Tom,
Yes.
I thought this meeting was 8:30.
You're early.
I know.
That's
Can you fill me in?
We're just having, at this point in time, we are just having Ryan go through his presentation that we have seen before.
Okay.
And,
I'm also recording this, Dick, so we can put some back on it.
yeah, I double checked this morning. I just looked at the letter that went out and said 8. So.
Well, at the last meeting, we said 8:30.
Is there any way we could clarify what's the adjusted irrigation tiers? Just looks like them are overlapping volumetrically.
Could you, you can come up to the table and could you just identify yourself for the record?
Those
Thank you.
newspaper guy.
Hi, I'm Doug with Explore Big Sky.
Okay.
And yeah, I'm just having trouble understanding how the irrigation tiers would work here.
All right.
If you want to go to that slide.
And do you want to do that now, or do you want me to finish up with sewer and then we'll get to water?
Why don't you go ahead and finish up on this, and then we'll get into the water and irrigation.
Okay. So what that did is we did have the, I guess it says adopted, but it was the rates that the board had acted on. 5% increase in the base fee per quarter for all users, and then 5% increase on the residential condo and the 10% on the commercial other. And I believe maybe a point of clarification, I think in the rate letter we had done the 10% for both residential condo and commercial other. If you have it in front of you, is that correct, Ron? Yeah. And so what I believe it had been halved for both of them because we had initially recommended 10% on residential condo and then 20% on commercial / other to start changing that cost of service or adjusting the cost of service discrepancy. And so I guess if you do act today on the rates, that would just be to clarify the 5% instead of the 10% that was in the letter. And then on the water system side, we had seen, as far as the cost of service discrepancy, residential condo, generally working out if combined, but you saw irrigation and then kind of the wholesale kind of under the share of revenue not keeping pace with the share of allocated costs. And so that combined with looking at your usage patterns had really helped refine how we adjusted the tiers. And we had discussed earlier what this was your baseline use from 2018, which showed that your current tier of 60,000 for your first tier, the vast majority of all users on the residential side did not ever outpace that. And then on the condo side, even the 99th percentile user was not ever triggering tier 2. And so that was one of the impetuses of how we refined the tiered structure. And we had presented a number of scenarios to that, and what we had settled on was, I guess first of all, I had shown a 4% increase to the quarterly fixed charge. But on the tiered side, we had well, from the number of scenarios, the adjusted residential tiers of 0 to 20,000 gallons for tier 1, and then 0 to 30,000 gallons on the adjusted commercial tier size. And then what would happen is on the irrigation side, in order to correct the cost of service discrepancy, it had to be different tiers really, or different pricing structure than was on the residential side. Part of that is that the residential tier 1 is designed to capture that responsible indoor water use. And then as you start looking at the irrigation tiers, it kicks into the outdoor water use. And then when you get into the higher tier 4, that's going to be irresponsible for a standard irrigation system. But what you have then is tier 2, the 0 to 20 for irrigation would start at this rate. And so all of the base flow, the initial flow would start at the tier 2 rate, and that's how it's set up with, or how the recommendation is set up.
And we should probably comment on what that irrigation bucket looks like.
As far as
How many accounts?
Yep.
how many accounts are in the irrigation?
Approximately
answer this.
160 accounts with just irrigation. Is that about right, Ryan? You've got that?
You said 160 or so, Terry?
Yeah.
That sounds about right, yeah.
And can you just describe what the typical irrigation is? Are these condos that have a separate meter for irrigation?
Separate condominiums, homeowners associations that have entryways to their properties have separate irrigation meters set up for that.
These aren't homes.
Yeah, these aren't.
These are not
It's common ground to associations
Right.
mostly.
Right.
We got them in town center, meter pits, for park areas, things like that.
So like where the stage is, where the music
Exactly.
is on an irrigation meter.
Right.
Where the park in West Fork, is that down there?
Yes. Yeah. So these are a different category. They're really meters that are only in service essentially in the summer months. And then they get shut off or blown out for the winter months.
So what the analysis exposed was that the tier structures that municipalities use are set up to encourage water, or lack of water, like encourage conservation of water. Our tier structure that we had previously established wasn't really performing that act because the tiers were so departed from the actual users. So now when you start to ratchet those tiers down and you do two things, one, you capture the heavy users and you probably create more inspiration for conservation. So that's the goal of our shift in tiers. Now that we have good data behind what the old tier structure was doing versus this new proposed tier structure.
Yeah, that all makes sense to me, but it just, with the no flow at tier 1 rate, that on this slide makes sense to me. On this, it just was unclear that it started at tier 2.
Yeah, I think that's a valid comment, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments? Steve?
Well, in addition to putting in place a more effective tier structure, you've also attempted to correct the revenue imbalance between categories, right? So, I mean, if you go back to the green slide, like condos were,
Essentially, it says
Yeah,
those who
that's
are
fine.
generating costs are being charged more correctly for their the costs that they're generating.
well, that's, I mean, the percentage differences on this slide are pretty, dramatic.
Yeah.
And in particular, condos are paying 30% too much, and irrigation was paying 30% too little.
Right.
So, correcting those imbalances was another part of the motivation in the new rate structure.
Well, and then you gotta kind of look at the percent of our overall revenue. So the condo category is the big one, right?
Right.
30%, and it's 43% of our revenue.
Right.
So that's why this, once we got to this point, and we had a very complete data set, because we had years of meter data, so it wasn't starting with very little data in terms of usage. But once we got to this stuff, it's like, well, we need to do something about that. So that brings us to where we're at now.
Well, and I think in previous rate setting, have you ever gone to this kind of detail to really see that there was that discrepancy?
The answer is no. Yes.
So good job. That's all I can say.
Well, it was really hiring somebody who has the expertise to analyze it, right?
And this has been a part of the maturity of the community. We started with no meters. We did those in 01, 2, and 3, 2001, 2, and 3, and then we've got quite a bit of history. We have raised rates over time, but nothing to split it out. It's always been a single rate.
The other thing that you could say is that you've had a significant increase in the number of condos that have been built in the last 20 years.
That's true also.
Compared to where you were.
Yes.
Well, there's the numbers right there, 33% of the front doors in the community, basically, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so a third of the front doors in this community are
Condos, yes. And a condo, if they have a green and are on irrigation meters too, may end up netting out to about the same place in terms of their costs, depending on how they run their irrigation system. And you're gonna find condo boards maybe getting more serious about not over irrigating, which is a good thing.
And paying attention to it more.
Yes.
Or getting on purple pipe.
Right.
Okay, any other questions on this slide?
It smells bad.
One thing to add is we did, that I realized I didn't put a slide together for, but we did put together the gray water users, the reclaimed water. Based on the board's direction, the rate letter includes showing that those will be a user class that will be tracked and monitored, but they will not have any flow charges assigned to them. They will have a meter charge assigned to them, though, to account for the fact that they are an account now in the system where they have water use and are tracked. Part of that is we foresee a history of having value in reclaimed water, where right now this community struggles to dispose of reclaimed water, but at some day, as these purple pipe networks expand, it's going to become an asset, not a liability at some time.
Yep. It's gonna be worth something.
Though in Arizona, they sell it.
Yeah, golf courses, that's making water, right?
Yeah. And then the last recommendation was, as Yellowstone Mountain Club was charged, they were currently getting one base charge and then a tier equivalent structure, which resulted in a first tier cutoff of approximately 12 million gallons a quarter. So they would never really trigger a second tier. What that is revised to is still a single base charge, but then 350 kilogram per 1,000 gallons of all flow, instead of having the tier equivalent structure assigned to Yellowstone Mountain Club.
What was the charge on the previously on the existing Yellowstone Club?
First tier.
It was 2.3.
Yeah, 2.73.
And
this type of approach is more consistent with a bulk wholesale user charge than the previous industry standard, I guess I should say, for bulk wholesale user charge, rather than having that kind of tier equivalent charge assigned to them. So.
Would it make any sense to have the charge change for third quarter? Have a higher rate in third quarter for Yellowstone Club, simply to encourage conservation?
Not really, because they can't exceed that agreement amount. It's not just this.
The 12 million gallons.
Yeah, it's not like it can go over that amount, so
I think
the agreement caps
the
it.
club has been
It
working
does
at
cap it.
trying to get people to recognize how much it costs up there.
Oh, we have a tier structure as well, but the 350 is a piece of that, I suppose. But
Yeah, because you charge it and then close.
And you upcharge us, right? You got a booster station up there, you got a cost with
Oh,
that,
yeah,
so,
yeah.
Right.
We'll pass this through eventually. That's what I was talking about, the tiered rollout for this change. It almost doubles the rate that YC has been paying for their water, which is fine. I believe in the methodology. I think the methodology is appropriate. And then there just has to be some faith in our partnership that we are doing the conservation. Mostly because that 350, I mean, it's sitting there and we don't want to have to pay that as well.
Do you think for the rates that you're charging your members, or you'll go to a tier rate that is somewhat similar to this?
I think our tier rate's already fairly similar to this proposal.
From
an analysis standpoint, I think that our rates will just increase with the linear cost of goods sold that we're going to be incurring off of this.
Yeah, there's limitations in the agreement, there's also physical limitations in pumps, what we can deliver up there.
Well, and, I'm not dealing so much with the revenue to the district, but I'm just dealing with the concept of don't over irrigate, because water is a finite resource in this aquifer.
Yeah. So our inspiration comes from the cost side and the conservation side, but it should reflect on that 12 million gallons, relieving some of that for availability for the district.
And I know the club's had a pretty good run the last couple of years on fixing some leaks. I mean, the trend, I think, has gone down the last couple of years in terms of average day.
It's always under at 12 million gallons per quarter. Even in
Yeah.
Our growth has gone, well, you know what our growth has been doing, but and our utilization's been going down. So that's
per user,
yeah. Well, it's similar to the district
A
actually.
little bit, yeah.
Which either it says that our systems are more intact, which is good, and these tier structures work.
How far down andesite do we provide water? The whole ridge? Down to the river?
Sorta, yeah, and then except for that piece over by Dude Park. So all that stuff over on Shedhorn, all those houses over by Shedhorn and all that stuff, they're all on their own water system.
Yeah, the first three phases of andesite
There are water rights.
are our service.
Oh, it's your wells, not their wells? They're not private wells on the lots?
We don't allow private wells.
Okay.
So basically everything on this side of the South Fork, or the andesite area.
Yeah, South Fork to the West Fork and up, except for that whole Big Sky Ridge subdivision up there that we bought from Boeing in the 2000s.
All right.
That was the walkthrough, very high level, I guess, for you guys, knowing that we have over the course of the study gone into great detail on a lot of this. So from there, I would turn it back over to you, Ron.
Good.
And I'll release.
Release the controls.
Thanks, Ryan.
Thank you, guys. It was a good opportunity to work work with you in the district, and we still have a little bit more left to do as we look at the final impact fee. But so I'll be back. I'm proud of you.
So also online is this rate study document, which is kind of an executive summary to what Ryan just presented. There was also a video. Let me find that.
It's linked on that up above.
Right here, which gets into kind of the overall cost of service analysis, how it's done, kind of the purpose of that. This is kind of what we started with back when we got into this process with Ryan at Nexus. So that's just the PDF of that rate study process. So took all that information, did several meetings with the board, presented 5 different alternatives, and that got boiled down to one preferred, which was the basis of the letter that went out to all our customers and owners. And that's what's on the table for consideration.
And then the tier 1 under irrigation tomorrow starts.
Yeah, that should be X'd out.
For irrigation.
Yes.
Barbara or Ron, do you want to have any public comments about what's in front of us?
I'll make a public comment.
Okay.
I'm Mary Ann Comstock. I'm a resident in the district, and I do support the rate structure as it's designed. And I commend you for recognizing that there have been some discrepancies in how a variety of users have been charged. So I also, because I have a history in serving on a previous water board, I understand the need to keep up with the costs. So.
Ron?
Yeah, I guess this is the time to.
Hey, you come up to the table.
Yeah, why don't you come up so we can, I'm recording this, so.
Or did you want to?
I wanted to use this.
You can use
You can use it.
Okay.
the whiteboard?
Yeah. So I just wanted to touch base on a couple things. One is the tiered structure, and just, I know there's the 60,000 gallon cutoff that now is in existence. And I want to just look at my own situation. I have a 3rd-acre lot, and so of that, about 10,000 square feet of it are irrigated or lawn. Because you have about 14,000 for a 3rd-acre lot, so you take out for your house and your driveway and so forth. It's about 10,000 square feet. And the generally accepted irrigation rates for just having a healthy lawn is about 1 to 1.5 inches per week that you are to water. And that's not necessarily to have golf course quality lawn, that's to have just a good healthy lawn. And part of our living here in Big Sky also is in having a healthy lawn, it helps for fire prevention, having a green space around your house and so forth. But as I was doing a little calculating on that, I found that with a 10,000 square foot lawn to be watered, and if you water it once a week, and if you water it so 4 times a month, say, and you do it for 3 months, that's 12 waterings. And I won't go through all the little calculations of it, but I came out with 74,805 gallons for that 12 waterings for 10,000 square feet. Now that's taking it at the lower part of 1 inch rather than 1.5 inch. And I think we're a little cooler climate in some places, so I think 1 inch is probably fairly close. And that's about what we used to figure when we were working down at the school, irrigating stuff down there. And I'm trying to be fairly careful as I irrigate. I stick tuna fish cans out there to measure to see how much I'm putting on and so forth. And this year, actually, it was a wetter year, so I was able to bring it down to to around 50-some thousand.
What was your third quarter water usage?
This year was 54,733. Last year it was 99. So this year was a wetter year, didn't have to use it.
So I just put 54,733. So we also have this comparison calculation, which shows what your water bill would be on the current rate, existing tiers shown in 1,000 gallons versus the proposed rates. So under the proposed rates, your new bill would be $293.97.
Okay, so there, I'm not understanding something correctly then.
This is why I'm bringing it up, so we're
Because,
comparing apples and apples.
Is that just a usage amount, or is that? the
Quarterly
base and
usage.
Both.
Just for water, is
Yeah.
sewer in here?
No, this is just water, showing the effect of the base rate and the new tiers that are proposed. There's no sewer number in that calculation. We
oh,
can,
I see what I'm, okay, so
You
the
don't-
entire amount is not put in.
It's like your
To
taxes.
this here, right.
well,
It's like your taxes, you get a
we-
certain
we
credit for
talked
the first
about-
20.
Yeah.
we
certain
talked
credit.
about doing that because that's a,
All right.
one of the things in this business of calculating this is you could say, okay, if you cross into a new tier, you're gonna get charged at that new tier rate all the way back to zero, right?
That's not the way it's being done.
That's not the way, but we talked about that and the board said, no, that's too punitive.
Maybe someday.
Maybe someday.
Okay.
So that's an
That makes a
important,
great difference
It
because my
does.
calculations, once I
You're gonna-
calculated my bill, I
$1 million
come out
bill, right?
with 395.
Okay, that's
Which
what,
was a
that,
97% increase.
right,
And so obviously I wasn't understanding the structure.
Right.
Correctly.
yeah, so you're up to 20, you're charged at the lower tier rate.
Okay.
And then once you cross over the 20, then you're charged at the new tier rate. So it gets more expensive as you march up through these tiers, which is intentional.
Right, and I understand the conservation aspect of it, but also, you know, you can only cut back so much and still maintain a healthy landscape.
Right.
And so I just want you to be aware, 10,000 square feet, this year we was able to keep it under that 60,000, which, you know, we tried to do. But last year was not, we didn't have as much rain as we did this year. This is a wetter year.
Oh, definitely.
And so it just made it, it would bump that up significantly, 90-some thousand. But I understand that now, and I don't have any big objections to that, because I was coming up with a 97% increase.
Yeah, no,
And,
I was telling the board we could raise rates just on how you calculate the bill. And they didn't like that idea. Which lot's yours here, Ron, in West Fork? I've got it on.
this lot is ours, it's right here.
This one, okay,
So I didn't know.
Your neighbor waters more.
yes.
There's also,
Smaller footprint.
Well, the guy across the street's pretty green.
yeah, that is, yeah, that's funny. Okay, yeah, here we are, right here.
Okay, so it doesn't look like golf course greens, so
No,
that was a few
You're on
years
the
ago. Yeah.
Your hue is more tan than green. Now, what does it do to the sewer rate? Do you have a combined sewer rate too on that? So,
well, I calculated two, and it was a 10% increase, that's very livable, I mean,
Yeah.
that's reasonable, I understand your increased costs and so forth.
So at the end of the day, it's not a 90% or 97% increase. What is the increase?
this was 50.
Yeah.
50%?
50%.
Which is not
Significant as well, yeah.
insignificant.
Right.
So
It's still pretty substantial.
But for the 1 quarter a year, just that. So,
Right, and
And
that's the whole thing is the irrigation.
$30 a month to water at the same rate he's watering right now with our new tier structure, basically is what we're saying, additional to what he's paying right now.
Yeah, and these are all quarterly numbers too, but,
That seems somewhat reasonable, right?
yeah.
I guess the question is, if you bump into that that last tier. That's where,
Throw 99,000.
so if you went,
Yeah.
can
The year
you,
before.
can you put in there what it would have been like a year before,
What was-
rate at 99,264.
There you're getting there.
Now it's getting steep.
Steeper.
Yeah,
Now
So
you're
that's-
now you're into that 90%.
It's 200 and change a month.
yeah. So that's the issue that
220.
we're dealing with, not trying to be a golf course.
Yeah.
But yet, yeah, you've got to keep your lawn healthy and alive and so forth. So I don't know what the answer is. I just wanted to bring it to your attention so that you are aware that this is what some of us are facing. Most of the people in West Fork that have the same size of lot that I do are going to probably be looking at it. South Forks, there are little smaller lots over there. But nevertheless, if we have a good year like we did this year, it's not going to be an issue. But in some of your drier years, it will be.
Last year was pretty wet too.
Yeah, it's not as dry as it has been 4 or 5 years ago when we had really dry summers. I mean, last summer was wetter than normal, and this last one was, I mean, we kept getting rain at the right time too.
Yeah, and so the timing, it has a lot to do with it as
Right.
well.
Because if you get all your rain in early June,
Yeah,
well, I guess it's July, August, and September, but we got rain in July and we got rain in August this year.
this was a wetter July.
Yes.
It was up to about the 18th.
But we came into
nice.
this quarter very wet too,
Yes.
because the end of June was very wet.
So anyway, I just want to bring this to your attention, that these are issues that I want you to see beforehand, before it's all locked in. Because you might have a lot of objections, I don't know how it's all gonna.
We did do quite a bit of scenario generation like you did as well, with quite a few bills. Didn't we have like 10 or 12 bills or 15 bills that we evaluated what the impacts were to this through all the scenarios and tiers? So that's kind of how we landed on this tier structure, to tell you the truth, is the evaluation of what it was doing to the constituents of the district and how big of an impact that would be. It was trying to balance it all out.
But if I understand correctly, this affected about 20%, going to that 60, 20% of the residential users. That's a pretty significant percentage. If it bumps you up to that considerable amount.
Well, and if these new tiers, it's gonna be a lot more than 20% of the users, right? What was that chart, that bar chart?
Right here.
Okay, the new tiers in third quarter, you're gonna have more than 20%, right?
Our tiers were so flawed before, we didn't capture anybody, so it was kind of
Right.
a pointless tier. So we're definitely gonna drag some people into a tier structure with this methodology, there's no doubt about it. That was the objection, or the objective of the effort, was to get our tiers to capture some people.
It just kind of gets to be a double whammy when you go up a tier and then the tier rate is also greatly increased. Point that I'm trying to make. Also, I talked about that 75,000 gallons. Then you have to add on your household use of 15 or so. So you're looking right around 90,000. And that's not being wasteful. It's trying to keep the lid on it. So,
But this new rate structure is gonna cut off there, right?
No, because it's for the quarter, so it's 20 times 3, right? Isn't that right?
It's not monthly, it's
No,
quarter.
it's for the.
Oh, that's per the quarter. So
Yeah.
that's not even a graphic of the new tier
No,
structure.
the new tier structure, the tier 1 would be right there, right?
yes.
And so it
Yeah.
looks like it's gonna be about 50% for, everybody's gonna be in tier 2 or higher
Wow.
During the 1 quarter.
during the third quarter.
Yeah, the other is just not.
One reminder, too, gentlemen, if I could, knowing that there are going to be quite a few more users that were captured, something that you had discussed and I think is the intent of the board and the district, is that with the switch to your AMR system, you will have more responsive reporting to the users by next irrigation, by that next third quarter, where they'll be able to more closely monitor what their usage is on a weekly or daily basis. So that's the intent at least. That way those who are using are able to kind of set alerts or at least log in and check what their usage is, so that they hopefully wouldn't have the same surprises moving forward.
And I think we have to redouble our efforts to make sure we have the software in place for next third quarter, that the users can log in and check how much water they've used in that quarter.
Yeah, we're putting a more robust metering system in that's going to allow end users to actually log in and check what their flow rates are, and even at the moment are daily or weekly or whatever, to try to control this a little bit.
Yeah, it's a big upgrade to what we've had, which gives us basically real-time data. So we're in the process of getting the billing and everything set up to utilize that. The next step of that is to get the customer portal going, and that puts these tools in your hand and in the phone app, and also on the computer where you can log in and see what your usage is. And phone will be the big part.
It'll also allow us to get alerts if someone's got a broken sprinkler line, or if someone's got a broken service or something like that, and their flow goes out of the norm. It'll trigger an alert where they can react instead of just looking at the quarterly bill or the monthly bill and saying, "Oh my gosh, Joe has a leak. He's used 80,000 gallons in 2 days," or something like that, and that's going to help us on the conservation side as well.
Well, I'm sure that'd be useful. Anyway, there's some of these things that I want you to be aware of going forward. That you can only cut back so much and still have them on. And you don't want to be such charges that one of the issues in the area is affordable housing. And that's not just the cost of a house, it's also the maintenance and the upkeep and so forth. There are people in this community that are pressed, and let's just keep that in mind. Thank you.
Thanks, Ron.
Thanks. Steve?
With regard to keeping lawns green during fire season, I think the reality of this is we're going to see more brown lawns around here. And it's not, the fire danger is not so much that it's brown, the fire danger is that it's too long, and it really creates a fuel base. So, a brown lawn in the third quarter, I think, is going to become relatively more the norm. And from a fire protection standpoint, as long as it's cut, there's very little danger from grass.
Yeah, I think the common is that the flame length of fire in grass is 2.5 times the length of the grass. So if you have a 4-foot grass, you're talking about 15-foot flame heights. If you're talking about a 2-inch, you're talking about 5 inches of flames. Much less danger.
Right.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's fact of the day. I might have to take that with me.
Or former
fireman.
Fire department.
Yeah.
My drinking buddies are gonna be impressed.
That is good, Dr. Chad.
Get your wife a new lawnmower, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Safety.
So, any other comments from the public, questions? We've got this set up as the front part of this is for presenting rates, hearing questions, comments on it, and then reconvene in regular session. Board can adopt if we've got enough, or put it off, wait for the next full board meeting to adopt it.
I'd like to ask, Packy, are you on?
Let me see if he's still there. Let's see who we got there. Yeah, he's still logged in.
You might be on mute.
He may be muted. So we got Peter and Packy.
Peter, are you still on?
He looks like he's muted also.
Just send the text.
Well, without one of those two, we don't have.
We had one gentleman stop by, Steve Rager, who has several businesses in Big Sky, and his comment was, gee, it'd be nice if you could send a bill out to everybody showing them what the effect of the new rates would have on their current usage. We could do something like that. It's kind of over and above what's typically done, but.
Well, even with I would like to have more than just a 4-person quorum to make this decision.
Hey, greetings. I'm on the call here. I just don't have audio speaker on my computer. So kind of
That's Peter.
checking in both ways. I'm here.
Thank you.
Okay, and I'm here.
I'm just talking about maybe we ought to wait until we have a greater presence at the meeting before we make a decision on this. How do you feel about that, Packy?
I'm sorry, you're gonna have to repeat that.
I was thinking that we ought to have more board members present at a meeting before we make a final determination on our rates.
We have 5 now.
We have 5. How do you feel about this, Packy? Where should we go on this? Should we delay making a decision, or would you like to make a decision today?
I don't have a problem waiting to get more input. I mean, I think that makes sense. I've been listening to the comments here, and you know, they're good comments and worth considering. It's so yeah, I don't have a problem with taking the time to reconvene everybody.
What I would say I wouldn't want to do is have this same type of presentation at the next board meeting. I don't know what we're going to get out of the next board meeting. Are we soliciting any more comment?
I mean, you can always get public comment on anything on the agenda. One thing we would like to do, and I've got to pull Susan in for this, is, you know, our form for this has always been our rate ordinance, which takes the 3 readings and slows us down in process, is to convert over to doing this by resolution, which can be done with a approval resolution, 1 meeting away you go.
Well, we could take a vote today if there was a motion as the first reading. Do we need 3 readings?
We're not doing that process, he said.
But we're going to try to move that to a resolution
But
process.
for right now, it's a 3 reading, right?
Right now, our form has been a 3 reading ordinance. If we do a resolution, it'd be on the November agenda, because we don't have one for today. But it could be done with not a reading, but you just approve the resolution with the new rates.
We don't have a reading to approve today, though.
No, we don't.
So we couldn't do the first one because we don't have the form of that reading.
So we couldn't approve a new rate structure anyways
Not if
today.
we're bound to the 3 readings like we did the last time.
So you need feedback from Susan on the resolution methodology versus the reading methodology?
It sounds like we'll wait to the next meeting then.
Yeah,
But I agree with Mike's point is that I don't think we need to go through this presentation again. I think we've done it twice now, and
more than that.
Yeah.
But you could approve the rate structure as presented in here to be prepared in the resolution or rate ordinance for the next meeting.
Yeah. I mean, we could make a motion to assemble the documentation to get on this tier structure to give us the ability to make this a new rate for the district.
Steve?
Just point out, you didn't have it on the agenda as a first reading.
Right.
That's correct.
So it's not a first reading.
Well, do we want to have a motion? Could we have a motion on that directing the general manager to have a resolution for the next meeting? We can do that today.
Yeah, I would like to make a motion to allow the general manager to move this recommended rate structure towards either a resolution or a first reading for our next board meeting.
Which would be the 19th.
And we need these in effect by when? Next? October 1st would be the effective date.
And we could do the first, second, and third reading all at the same meeting, so I'm not overly worried about approval at the next meeting in full. We could do that in full.
But we approve this at the next meeting, it went into effect
posted.
Yeah, we effective October 1st for.
Of this year.
Yeah,
For the fourth.
And what do you have in the budget?
I don't have a budget
Do you
set
have a
up
rate?
with these rates in there.
Okay.
There were a number of things that we were going to incorporate, and you were going to get new budget numbers that you were going to approve after we came up with a new rate.
Can you look into that? Can we make a measure on, so a motion's on the table.
Yeah, do we have a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further public comment? All those in favor, say aye.
The question I have,
Aye.
are we legally okay with retroactive behavior on rate structures? Like, why wouldn't we just vote on it in October, and if everyone's content with it and our full board is here and all that stuff, why don't we just make it November 1?
Because we bill quarterly, and it would be a nightmare to implement.
Midstream.
But we could do it January 1st.
Yeah, we could do a January 1st or an October 1st.
But I mean, it's a legitimate
Yeah,
question.
Yes.
I don't think we can claw back.
We can look at it.
I would be more in favor to do it January 1st.
Okay.
I think you have no issues doing it.
And it really doesn't, because where it really impacts is the third quarter anyways, right?
We can bridge the revenue stream. We're
Which we've already
projecting to
built.
bridge the revenue stream that's not there right now. So our approved budget doesn't allow for that revenue stream to happen anyway. So I think a new start on the new year would probably be good. And it would give, to some comments that were made here today, it would actually give some preparation for some of these people to kind of get their hands around it. And there's, people in this community that can't just absorb a $50 bill addition to their bottom line. Maybe this will help in the preparation of that.
Do we need to, are you talking to Susan about a resolution versus reading, or where are we on that?
Yes, I'll talk to Susan
But
about
right now, we're looking at one.
it. Right now, we would be amending our rate ordinance for first reading for November. I'll talk to Susan about changing the form of that to resolution.
And we probably ought to make it for a January resolution.
The
I
more I
think
think about it, I think that
I think that's the right way of doing it.
November, you might as well wait and make it January 1 effective.
Some Christmas money and.
All right, the next meeting date is November 19th.
19th, yeah.
8 o'clock?
8 o'clock. 8 o'clock.
There was some confusion, Dick, and then this morning I got up and said, I'm not really sure whether it's 8 or 8:30. So I pulled this out from the packet and it said 8.
That's
And I said, well, okay.
I
walked out of here last Tuesday, and the last thing I said was 8:30, right? And we went right.
Yeah, I would never
Which
trust
was
that.
probably true. That's the thing that did us in on the 8 o'clock though, that letter, so.
Yeah.
That's what we stated.
Because I knew people were going to show up for that, so. Do I have a motion for adjournment?
Yes. Second adjourned.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye. Thank you, guys. I'm signing out.
All right. See you later.
Yeah, thanks.
One of the things I think we could do too is get the calculator for the sewer rate on the website.
That'd be good.
Yeah.
I've got the water only right now, so we'll just add another bucket for the,
And then a combined, having an additional
put it
column.
here.
Your total bill will be the
Yeah.
tax.
Yeah.
like, this was pretty quick.
Who does all our
I
web
can,
hosting? Do you guys do it internally?
Not on our servers, so it's GoDaddy.
I can go on to my Rainbird and change my irrigation.
Yeah, that'd be good. Just to see what the total
It's
amount looks
raining, I
like.
can shut
This
it off.
calculator actually sits on the A2
You
server.
already have that?
We're gonna
No, I
move
don't.
that,
Actually, I
so
don't have
it
your-
was quick and dirty for the.
Oh, you did a sprinkler
So
method?
I'm
Oh, I
on-
was gonna say, if you had one of these, I've been controlling mine with my phone.
Fixed income stuff.
Especially if I'm not around and I hear it's raining here. it's
Property
raining.
taxes that come down.
That's the whole thing.
There's another
Property
$59 million
Oh, did
freaking
they
jail
get that?
bond again. I see the ballot sitting on my desk. I'm like,
Is there another?
$59 million
for the county,
I
the
mean,
county and city
I
couldn't
had
get
to buy
one.
it live.
Who's gonna die?
They just
No.
posted the-
I voted
The
against it.
city one did.
And
The city one passed.
Right, the city could.
The bond
We
didn't
gotta
pass.
do
Why didn't those two get along? Why didn't the city and the county get along and join?
And I'm, I think I
We
used
still don't.
30,000 gallons.
I don't think they can figure out who
I put in that
should pay what portion.
And I'm still,
Yeah, that
Well, they-
this is my last summer.
But that's a general complaint, who should pay a portion of anything.
Yeah. I don't have kids in school anymore.
Well, no, I think there are a lot of
No.
debates over who pays for open space, you know, parks and trails, that kind of stuff.
Require
There are county parks.
less water.
We just did a $125 million high school, and now we got a $59 million bond sitting in front of us for a new jail.
Well, high school's a city thing, bond.
No, it's a county thing too, trust me, I live in the county and I tell
Yeah, and
that,
my,
but I'm in that school district though.
Oh, yeah, the school district.
It bounces out of the city limits and it captures the school district,
It's
so.
the school district.
It's a little tough, you know.
But you would have to tear everything out.